All right, folks, it is Monday, August 12th, 2024. And as always, there's lots of things taking place in the world and lots of conversation points about what's going on in the world. Russia is ordering more evacuations as Ukraine's incursion into its territory enters its seventh day. So, definitely that's what's going on. So, it looks like Ukraine is reversing the nature of the war and is actually now going into Russia. So, that is one of the things that is taking place. And firefighters are battling an extremely dangerous wildfire near Athens. So, an exceptionally dangerous wildfire with 80-foot flames is raging around Athens. So, looks like the Greek firefighters have been battling that wildfire well into Monday morning. And Hamas says it won't take part in a Gaza hostage ceasefire deal talks. So, Hamas leader Sinwar wants a ceasefire deal, mediators say, but apparently he's not too pleased with Netanyahu's stance. So definitely, and even the White House is slamming the outrageous statement from the Israeli minister on a ceasefire deal. So definitely that's something else going on as well. And of course, a lot of people, including myself, were watching the Olympic closing ceremonies that apparently had a very dystopian kind of a feel, as there was like a notion of what it might look like if the world did not have an Olympic Games and all along those lines. And there were some amazing performances, including one from her and some other performers as well. And the U.S. wound up being tied with China for the most gold medals at 40 and everything. And there's still some of the controversy going around Jordan Childs and the loss of her bronze medal to the performer, I believe, or the athlete, I believe, from Romania, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. But definitely that is something else that was going on in the news as well. And the U.S. did win the overall gold count, even though they tied with the whole notion of China for the gold medals and all along those lines. So that's something else that was in the news that people were talking about and thinking about as well. So like I said, that's something that was taking place, and I did watch some of the races, including a very tense moment with U.S. and France in women's basketball. Actually, the U.S. and France in men's basketball was close as well. And I know Steve Rao, he was here, as well as Jatovi. Will be glad to know that there are some new sports that are coming to the 2028 Olympics now that the Olympics have been passed off to Los Angeles. One of those sports is lacrosse. The other sport is, and there's 5 of them, is flag football. Yes, flag football will be here in the 2028 Olympics, and the sport that we've even had representatives from that will be in the Olympic Games next Olympics in 2028 is cricket. So that's what I meant when I said Steve Rao and some of the other folks that are part of the cricket community here, including Jatovi, who called one of those games recently, will be glad to, actually a couple of those games, will be glad to hear. And Israel is keeping up its strikes in Gaza as fears of a wider war grow. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. So definitely folks are taking place in that and all along those lines. So definitely there's a lot of things going on in that space. And over in Brazil, a boxing mix-up stopped more deaths in a Brazilian plane crash that killed 61, says a would-be passengers. So definitely it looks like there was a major plane crash there in that area. And if you didn't have enough of tropical storms, because I know we got hit by Debbie probably quite decently, a tropical storm watch has been issued for Puerto Rico as future Ernesto takes aim at that Caribbean island again. So if that's the case, it might be heading our way. Maybe we're going to get some stuff from Ernesto, because we definitely got some severe rain from Debbie. So maybe Ernesto is going to head our way as well. And Israel is preparing for a large-scale attack from Iran as U.S. orders warships to accelerate deployment. So Israeli minister tells U.S. that large-scale Iranian attack is expected, according to Axios. And it looks like, there's helicopters crashing all kinds of things. And a helicopter crashed into the roof of the Carnes Hilton Doubletree Hotel, killing that pilot. So the pilot was killed after an unauthorized helicopter crashes into the hotel's roof in Australia. So the hotel had to evacuate 400 people after the helicopter crashed into the roof and sparked a massive fireball. One of the residents there said that it sounded like a bomb. So definitely that was something going on in the Middle East as well. And I mean, not in the Middle East, in Australia. And the U.S. orders submarines to Middle East carrier strike group to sail faster. So, Defense Secretary has ordered submarines to the Middle East, accelerating the arrival of the strike group ahead of the anticipated Iran attack. So, it does look like the U.S. has sent carriers and missile submarines to the Middle East as Iran tensions grow. So, that's something else going on in the news. And Ukraine says the Russian army started the fire at the occupied nuclear plant. And that's something that is going on as Russia sets the Ukrainian nuclear power plant on fire, according to Zelensky. So that's something that, like I said, there's a lot of conflict going on between Russia and Ukraine. And people are still talking about how a young generation in Bangladesh forced out their longtime leader. So definitely the young people can have their impact even in some of the other countries as well. So definitely that is something that folks are paying attention to, as well as the impact of all of that. And Emmanuel Macron, apparently he was the biggest fanboy at the Olympics. He's also the president of France. So there was even a moment, I'm sure that Rick may have found interesting, but I think there was a moment where a streaker tried to go up the Eiffel Tower right before the Olympics. And I think that they caught that gentleman, but that is something that I was reading as well, because I think they even shut down the Eiffel Tower for a minute as that particular person decided he wanted to have his few minutes of fame and all along those lines. So definitely got to hear what Rick thinks about that, because that was something that I was reading and just it took place during the Olympics. And in Venezuela, in the Venezuela elections, the opposition is calling for protests over the presidential poll. So definitely it looks like the Maduro regime is clinging to power. And after Venezuela's contested presidential vote, experts say government results are a statistical improbability. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And the death toll from a landslide at a Uganda garbage dump rises to 21. So that is something else that we're seeing as rubbish collapses at the landfall site in Uganda's capital. So some of these countries have some deep issues with rubbish. I think Brazil's even got some of that as well. And Paul Kagame is sworn in for his fourth term as Rwanda's president. So Rwanda's president Kagame sworn in to extend his lengthy tenure. So he was sworn in for a fourth term after a 99% election win. So definitely in some of these countries, the elections aren't even close, and all in that space. An Iranian president has named moderate and female ministers as he unveils his cabinet. So the Iranian president is proposing an ex-nuclear negotiator as his foreign minister. So it does look like there might be some things going on in that way as well. And we want to go back to Europe. Serbia's populist president says lithium protests are part of a hybrid warfare against his country. So thousands demand a halt to the Rio Tinto's lithium project in Serbia. So it looks like thousands were joining the Belgrade protest against lithium mining. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And by the way, not that far from us, Philippines says the actions of the Chinese Air Force are illegal and reckless. And in the UK, in the English town of Southport, where they're mourning the 9-year-old stabbing victim, and there's a call for an end to unrest. At the end of the UK riots, parents of the murdered girl are into the UK riots. Parents of the murdered girl are urgent at her funeral. So let her dance to heaven is some of the quotes that they said. Funeral takes place of Alice 9, who died in the Southport attack. So that's just some of the things that we're seeing on the international scene. Let's see some of what we're happening on the U.S. scene, and then I'll bring in my fine folks and all along those lines, and we'll go in that way. It looks like Harris is endorsing eliminating the taxes on tips, touting the policy first proposed by Trump. So Kamala Harris is copying Trump's vow to cut taxes on tips. So no tax on tips. Apparently, a lot of politicians love it, and economists don't necessarily love it. But it looks like Harris is trying to steal some of that thunder and saying that she might back that as well. So definitely that is something we're seeing as well, and we'll see what goes on in that space. And definitely there was even notes about Trump receiving internal Trump documents from Robert. Then the campaign confirmed that it was hacked. So the Trump campaign says that it's been hacked. So I believe it was Politico that got those Trump documents, but now they're saying that they've been hacked. So it looks like even Trump campaigns can be hacked as well. And by the way, it was fun watching Tom Cruise do his epic stunt at the Olympic closing ceremony and all along those lines. And yes, I did watch some of the performers, including Billie Eilish and Snoop and Red Hot Chili Peppers and some other ones as well. So definitely, and it looks like Musk and Trump had put aside their differences, because there was even an interview between Trump and Elon Musk and everything. So definitely looks like that's going on. So Elon Musk is to interview Trump on the X social media network. So I guess folks will be looking forward to seeing what they've got to say in that particular interview. And I know that there are still conversations about the debates that are supposed to be taking place in September. The first one, September 4th, that Fox is doing. I think the other one on the later date in September is being done on ABC, and then I forgot the third network, but they're still negotiating so that these can take place, because I don't think necessarily that Kamala Harris is too thrilled with the first one being a Fox one and all in that space. But definitely, and of course there's accusations about crowd size, and with some people saying that the crowds aren't as big as people are claiming and all along those lines. But I know there's been some argument back and forth, because they're definitely, I think Vance and Trump have been trying to say that the crowd size has been doctored by the Harris and Walz ticket, but that doesn't seem to be the case. They just seem to be drawing large crowds. And Harris hauls in $12 million at a San Francisco fundraiser as Pelosi welcomed the vice president back home to California. So definitely there she is raising some money from some of the tech leaders as well. And it looks like the Kamala Harris campaign is hitting back at Trump in that crowd size feud and everything, because apparently Trump has been claiming that the crowd seen at Harris rallies are fake. And I think he's even been trying to claim that this is a reason that she should not be allowed to run. I think he even called it election interference or something like that. But there's been no proof of that I have seen or anybody else has seen. But we'll see what goes on in that space. And last but not least, before I bring in my folks, the Uvalde officials released an unheard 9/11 call and document from that school mass shooting, as the city of Uvalde releases records from the 2022 Robb Elementary shooting. So definitely that's something going on. Matter of fact, in one of the responses, one of the students was heard to say, "I don't want to die as a student," and that's what they told the 9/11 dispatcher during the mass shooting. Speaking of violence, a mob of teens violently assault a man and break his leg in downtown Los Angeles. So that is something else that we're seeing as well. So I'm going to get into some of these other things going on and bring in the fellow panelists as well. And by the way, a jury selection begins Monday for former Las Vegas area politician accused of killing an investigative journalist. So definitely that trial is going on there in Vegas as well. But like I said, going to bring in my fine folks like Rick Rosner, who I've got with me, and see what he's got to say, and if he watched any of the Olympics and saw any of the activities. And of course, I've got Jacoby, who I know is probably watching some of the activities with the games. As like I said, that game on the women's basketball scene was tense as all get out, and they only wound up not going into overtime by literally inches and all in that space. Because like I said, that shooter who plays for the WNBA had just been maybe a couple of inches to her back a little further. We would have been going into an overtime game, and who knows what the result would have been, because France was well in the lead for much of the game, even building up a 10-point lead. But the women fought back and got that gold medal that they had said they wanted at the beginning.
It was a frustrating game. Not a lot of baskets were shots were going in. They were shooting like 30%.
Right.
That's because Caitlin Clark wasn't playing.
That's incorrect.
Oh, that is correct, Jacoby. That's the reason why people didn't watch it.
Just a quick fact, because you obviously don't watch basketball. Just to point out, Caitlin Clark is actually number 17 on the actual 3-point list in the WNBA. So therefore, the individuals that they had actually playing in the WNBA or in the actual Olympics had a higher shooting percentage from the 3-point arc than Caitlin Clark. And the actual individuals that did play have a better rapport with each other. So just throwing in Caitlin Clark, just because you like Caitlin Clark, doesn't actually help the actual game. That's the way basketball works, Nick. I'm sorry, you don't know basketball. Don't debate me on sports. I know sports like the back of my hand. I'm sorry.
You were schooled.
I'm sorry. You guys look up the facts.
Look up the facts. Speaking of facts,
Caitlin.
I know that one of the things that Nick has said in the past is that the Olympic viewing was
Caitlin Clark
down
was
and
the
everything. So
NCAA
can you talk to us about
They
that?
want like
Jacoby?
this to her. They deserve it. You know?
So the actual the physicality of FIBA basketball is actually a lot more tough than what goes on in the WNBA. Hence the reason why it's tougher to get off that 3-point shot than actually in the WNBA. So you have Caitlin Clark is just coming into the WNBA, and she's struggling from the 3-point line as is because of the change of the actual sport. So because of the fact that she had not played with these women, because of the fact that she has she's not in the top 10 in the 3-point shooting right now, and because of the fact that others actually have played together and are better, it is a much better game. And so therefore, the physicality would have sat on top of Caitlin Clark, and she wouldn't have had a chance to get that out.
Little girl click.
Hold on.
Oh my Lord, they're going to break the little girl click. Too bad.
Toby's right. Both the men's and the women's games were super feisty. Like there a lot of stolen passes, just like they were playing every minute like it was the last minute, just in everybody's face. Hard to get penetration. Like
the men's game had Steph Curry, and Steph Curry basically
he did like crazy stuff in the last 3 minutes.
The last
game did not
Nick, just to point out again, you're forgetting about basketball because obviously you do not know basketball. If you did watch all of the men's games, the only 2 games Steph Curry went off were the last 2 games, and he only played for that one little bit where he quote unquote went off. It was actually a LeBron James, a Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis and others on the inside where they were actually able to bang and keep it close. For example, in the game where they played Serbia in the second to the last game, it was the actual bronze medal game. It was because of the fact that Joel Embiid had slowed down Nikola Jokic to actually allow for the U.S. to stay within the game, because Nikola Jokic was actually keeping Serbia ahead. They had to double team him because he could bang and distribute. It wasn't because of just Steph Curry coming in and jacking up threes. No, it was the fact that Joel Embiid had to come in and play some tough-nosed defense and slow down Nikola Jokic. So that's the way basketball works. The idea that just throwing a person in the game, it doesn't work that way. That's just fandom speaking and not actually basketball speaking.
Just really quickly, one of the things that people were talking about sports-wise, and I even observed, and I was loving your thoughts and anybody else that wants to think about it. There was a lot of feistiness in a lot of the games, because I was watching one of the volleyball games. I think it was the semifinal game between Brazil and U.S., and I mean, they were literally in each other's grill and everything, and there was even some times where they were using some words, because I know that even I think it was the final game and everything, when they were asking about one of the defensive players' shutdown, one of the star players said that she was that B word, and I'll just leave it at that B word and everything. And not everybody's always pleased when they hear athletes using that word, but she was using it in a positive. And you can also, if you don't know what that B is, it's also has to do with a lady dog and everything. So I was just wondering your take on some of that feistiness, because this was one of the most feisty Olympics that I have seen, and it wasn't not just in the volleyball, it was also in some of the handball matches and some of the other ones. So folks were definitely being a little bit more feisty than I remember from some of the past Olympics.
Yeah, people want to win, and they want to win for their country. People are playing for pride. So not only is there the feisty, there's the ultra competitiveness. For example, Noah Lyles, after I think it was the qualifier for the 4x1, people had asked him about Canada, and he tried to talk junk about Canada. Guess who ended up winning the 4x1 in the Olympics? It was actually So there's pride on the line. There's competitiveness. The beauty of the Olympics, especially now, because sports is global, there's just the playing field is becoming level. There's so many people coming from so many places that we would not. There's so many like African countries that had their first ever medals this go round. There were you had like I said, the playing field is just about level now. And it's just neat to see. So yes, you have the feistiness. You don't have the super world dominance as it has been in the past. Sure, China and the U.S. each had 40 gold medals, and the next had 20. Yes, the U.S. had the most medals overall, but we also had the most competitors. So it's cool to see the Olympics now because of the fact that it's extremely competitive and the playing field is level. And yes, these players are playing at such a high level. It's amazing.
Hey,
So
Rick,
it's
really
not
quickly,
just hold on. It's not just sports. There's a thing called the Flynn effect. The average IQ of the entire world went up 15 points in the second half of the 20th century. So the same thing that's leveling out the playing field, that there's technology and information available to the world, helps with sports. It also helps with literacy and even thinking the world over, because information, everybody in every freaking country has a smartphone, and so everybody can learn, and it's a good thing. Now, Mark, you mentioned ratings for the Olympics.
Yes.
So I think ratings for network were down, but streaming exploded because NBC came up with a good streaming platform on Peacock, which is a good thing. A bad thing is, since the writers and actors strikes, the streamers haven't been making any product. They're like, F you, you guys got some concessions. We're just not going to make anything. So if you look at Netflix, the new movies that Netflix is rolling out, 10 of them four of the top 10 are re-releases of movies that are 15 years old.
Hey, Rick, just in that thing with Rick saying, because the Olympics was handed off from where we were this time, Paris to Los Angeles, and I keep wondering how Los Angeles is going to be ready with all of the issues that Los Angeles has. I did see that Karen Bass, y'all's mayor, was there to accept the flag along with Simone Biles, and then they headed it off to Tom Cruise, who made a dramatic entrance and then got it to Los Angeles, including doing a whole Top Gun type plane to LA and everything, because there was definitely some Hollywood theatrics going on and everything. But I just wondered, as one that lives out there, how are you feeling that y'all are going to be prepared for the Olympics?
All right, so we talk about this all the time. We got 73,000 homeless people. We somehow have to get rid of 18,000 homeless people a year between now and the Olympics. They're also holding the Olympics in July, where this July, LA only had one day with a high temperature under 80, and we had 10 or 11 days with highs 88 or above. So we're going to make the same mistake France did. We should hold the Olympics in May when it's cool. No, we're going July. It's going to be hot as heck. We've got some challenges, but we've held it twice before. The last time in '84. We have so many sports arenas that at least we won't have to build a whole bunch of new stuff. Plus, some of the events are being outsourced. I think they're playing softball, maybe baseball in Oklahoma, or some stuff's being played in Utah. I don't know. We'll get by. We've done it before, but the idea, I want LA to look good, so our property taxes our property values don't go down. I want the world to still want to come to LA, so I hope we do a good job.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything, but don't know other folks. I see Steve's here. Anything? So, Steve, what you got going on? What are you observing? We can get even to some of the political discussions. I know that a lot of folks are paying attention to these. Speaking of crowds, arguments about crowd size, because apparently Trump is trying to claim that the crowd sizes that we're seeing from Kamala are fake, and he was even claiming election interference. So some people are saying that this is his way of setting up for a contested election should he lose, and it does look like he's falling behind in the polls and everything, so he may already be setting up his argument should he happen to lose. So what is your take on this whole notion of what's going on in that space?
I think Steve left, but when it comes to crowd size, I think that's a waste of time discussion. They will not discuss the economy. They will not discuss the problems of immigration. They won't discuss the hard issues. Instead, they discuss stupid issues like using the word weird or crowd size or what.
Well, Emma's not discussing anything. What do you mean? She won't take an interview.
Yeah, well,
if she does take an interview, it's with softball questions. It's
Biden. The thing is, he shouldn't say that the election was stolen. Frankly, the whole thing was stolen. from the American public because they stuck us with 35 trillion in debt with nothing to show for it. And they,
That's on
they
Biden
parade
era.
around, politicians parade around like everything's fine. It's not fine.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, run up a big credit card, send the American public a huge $35 trillion debt, and then to make matters worse, ignore it like it doesn't exist. And we're supposed to be happy with what the Democrats and the Republicans have brought forth to us. No, I'm not happy. I'll see you guys.
Let's speak about things in that regards. And
let's talk about the Olympics. I want to rattle Jatovi's chain because apparently he's got a big problem with testing, doing genetic testing. And you have people that have XY chromosomes in the Olympics playing as females.
We don't know that they were tested. We don't know what test was performed on them, whether it was genetic or testosterone.
No, that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
But you're saying we don't know if those people are XY. We do know that they've lived as women their entire lives.
So what? So what? You live as a fraud your entire life doesn't mean that you are.
It comes down to two words.
Nobody is living as a fraud.
And by the way, the media did a good job. You know what they did a good job on boxing? They didn't cover it. You know, that was the best thing I saw NBC do, is not cover women's boxing because
they did cover it. They did cover women's boxing. They even actually had an interview of the winners.
I never saw it. And the thing is, I'm grateful that I never saw it because the thing is, it's a complete fraud. And the thing is, they refuse to do a simple Schwab test. All they do is a karyotype test. You take a Schwab, you put it through the machine, and you determine whether XY or XX.
Again, she competed as a woman.
We're going to do identity science. What's that? Well, that's what you ever identify yourself with. That's garbage. That's not science. And so my respect for progressive went down to 0 from like -10.
You're making a truly ignorant argument, though, Nick. And here's why you're making a truly ignorant argument. Because the woman has a birth certificate that says she was born a female. The woman has competed as a female her whole life. The woman beat a Russian boxer. The Russians run actually the IBA, and the IBA tried to suspend her without doing any testing. So now your whole argument is based on what the IBA said, but yet you have not done any investigation into what the IBA is. And so you want her to prove to you that she's a woman without having any reason to not believe that she's a woman. So that's why I'm saying you're making a truly ignorant argument. Ignorant is basically a lack of fact, not an actual talking about your intelligence. Ignorant means a lack of knowledge.
Jatovi and Nick, hold on a second, both of you. Hey, Jatovi and Nick, hold on, both of you. Hold on, Nick, hold on, both of you, because I do have a question on mental health, and I'm glad Kim joined us and everything, because one of the things that I am not that big a fan of is a lot of times, because a lot of these are young athletes, and you are sometimes playing with their emotions and everything. Because for somebody to be picked to be third because of a judging mistake, because I've always been taught in athletics that you need to win by enough of a margin that you don't have to depend on the judges or the referee or whatever. But I am also feeling very sorry for Jordan Childs, just like I felt sorry for the Romanian woman, because it seems like there was a lot of back and forth.
So there's new information about there's new information about that. Romania and the U.S., the gymnastics teams agreed to share a bronze. They each get a bronze. The IOC said, no, you can't. We're not going to do that. They kicked out the U.S.'s appeal of the score because they said that you have 1 minute to get the appeal in. Now, hold on. And the U.S. took 64 seconds. The appeal came in 4 seconds late. The U.S. has come back and said they have video evidence that they appealed at 47 seconds. And then again, they restated their appeal at 55 seconds. So now we're waiting for the reply from the IOC.
And this is how bad the IOC is. They're bad on genetic testing, and they were bad in this particular case too. So all the IOC
I want to state that if
they
people
cannot judge anything. The IBA is
first off, if you know, there is a difference between when a man hits you and a woman hits you. And I think Emaine probably swings more like a woman than a man. I didn't see any bones broken on Carini, didn't see heavy duty bruises, but as my suspicions have been confirmed, the Italian girl was warned before she went into the ring with Emaine. They had told her that Emaine was a transgender and was a man. So she went in for 46 seconds, and I think in her brain she thought, I'll bow out, and then cry, he's a man. And then default, to her. I was suspecting that this was what was happening because a lot before you go, you're going through the Olympics, you've watched your opponents. Mm-hmm. So I figured that because she cried, that's a transgender, they hit like a man. But they found out Emaine wasn't a transgender. Emaine was identified at birth with certain chromosomes, and they had to make a decision. The chromosomes lean towards female. And again, you can go look. I mean, I've been hit by a man before. It was an accident. They hit a lot different than a woman will hit you. And the strike is a lot different. But I think when you go into a ring willingly to fight, and I'm certain that Carini has fought men before in her training, she knows the difference. But I think that this was a bit of a scam on her part to try to default and easily win a medal. And that's has been my opinion from the moment I watched her take a bow in 46 seconds and go, that's a man. I knew something was up.
She apologized.
I just knew something was up.
The Italian apologized for spreading misinformation that her opponent was transgender.
No, also, he wasn't transgender, and that was the first comment. Oh my God, they've sent me into a ring as a transgender, and that wasn't. And they should more than apologize to Emaine for
also, we should be discussing new news. This happened 2 weeks ago. Why aren't we discussing the new news?
Well, the new news is, you have that default by a few seconds. You know what? I'm tired of the Olympics. The Olympics has become nothing more than politics to me. I'm exhausted with all the finger pointing, the shaming, the Christian shaming, the opening. I'm sick of it. I don't ever want to see another Olympics again. I hate to say it, but I think that these people who love this sport should just do it purely for the love of the sport. Go compete, within their own local communities and stay out of all of this cult crap. I'm done with it. I really am. I think it's bad. I used to enjoy the Olympics because I used to think that there was no stuff like what you see in the U.S. sports where, they did this or they did that. But, they're still doping. They're still trying to sneak around and do things. But I truly believe that Emaine was a woman, born a woman. And anyone who says she isn't should, just wait until they go to heaven and ask God. But I think, that this was a really good challenge to what is really going on, not just in the country, but in the world.
Well, there might be some shaming going on and everything, but I will still enjoy the game. I enjoyed Katie Ledecky. I enjoyed some of the track runners, and I enjoyed some things. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck is going on with our relay team. That there's 3 times that our men runners can't get their act together because they can't even learn how to pass a baton and everything. Exactly. There are some of the things that are going on that I'm still trying to figure out why they haven't got their act together and everything. But I still am a fan of the game and all along those lines. And I enjoyed even seeing some sports that I don't always see. Like I enjoyed seeing some handball matches, some amazing volleyball matches. And Gabby is no joke, the Brazilian young lady that is a volleyball player and everything. And there are a couple of other ones that I was impressed with as well. So I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole of not liking the Olympics. I mean, for those that are turned off by the Olympics, that is y'all's right and y'all's prerogatives, but I'm still a fan of the game. But I did have a question, and this is actually directed toward Dan and everything, and it's coming back to politics. But I was wondering our thoughts around this notion of no taxes on tips, because apparently it was a Trump initiative, and apparently Kamala is saying that that's an initiative that she can get behind it and everything. So I just wanted your take on whether this is something that is economically sound, because I'm hearing some economists that are going like, that's not even economically sound. So I don't know why either you, Kamala, or you, Donald Trump, are big into it and everything. But I just wanted your take, one, on her borrowing from Trump's initiative, and two, whether it's something that we should be doing with this whole notion of no taxes on tips and everything.
I'll address two things. First of all, back on the Olympics thing. Yes, it's become highly politicized, but it is our Olympics. It is the thing we celebrate together as nations, right? IOC is corrupt. That's true. Now, with respect to the comments by Jatovia about the two boxers, I agree with him. They're not transgendered. They're actually intersex. There is a difference. They have to make a policy regarding that and make a decision. They need to keep to it. Now, with respect to the tips tax, I believe that normally people who get tips are low-income people. They deserve a break. I'm also for not taxing Social Security. However, there is the comment that, we're so... The problem is we spend so much and we're so underwater as an economy, and the people are being stepped on because of the prices and everything else. Americans cannot sustain this, but it really is about government spending, power, corruption, and payoffs that is the real problem among the government officials and in the different industries. And that Kim's talked about the oil group and that kind of thing, and fixing prices and screwing us on that. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on in the world, but it's all about politics and corruption. So taxing tips isn't necessary. Taxing seniors on their Social Security it isn't necessary, but somebody's got to pay. Unfortunately, they pushed the bill down to the middle class and the working poor, and that's just how it works. See, people who work for a wage already pay Social Security tax. They already have that as their minimum tax rate. There should be something similar for people who will make any type of money. Those who are making a lot of money should not have to pay less tax than those who make very little. It's not only morally wrong, it also doesn't work financially. But if you tax the wealthy 90%, that would not balance the budget, because we are in a crisis of overspending and overcommitting ourselves financially. It cannot be solved by taxes alone. It has to be solved by smart budgets, just like our friend, the former comptroller of the U.S. We need to tighten our belt. We need to have a plan. We need to have strong fiscal policy in order to climb out of this issue.
So I want to go back to the Olympics for just a sec. They've always been political. 1936, Hitler held the Berlin or Munich. Well, anyway, he held the Olympics to make Nazis look good. And I think they're better now because Russia was kicked out. I don't know whether it was because of the war or because under the Soviet Union and even into the Russian era, they always cheated, and both in judging, but mostly in just being doped up, totally full of steroids. The Russians weren't allowed to compete. That led to a better, more fair Olympics.
Just to point out as well, just to chime in on the Olympics thing real quick with what Rick was saying, we keep ignoring the fact that the Olympics do have rules, and we're not in a wild, wild west of everybody going out there. Rick pointed out the rules of the anti-doping, which came in, yes, based on the Russians. And honestly, the testosterone levels are tested. So that's already taken care of. That came in with Caster Semenya, or Semenya. I'm sorry, that's how you pronounce her last name. That came in basically with her. And then in 2023, December of this year, or December of last year, they actually got more strict on their rules around testosterone levels, as well as transgender situations. So it's not a wild, wild west that we're trying to portray it as. What comes into play where we get agitated is what's going on with Childs, because with what's happening with her is a situation that deals with gymnastics in general. There is always the appeal. There is always a subjection or subjective judgment in that actual judging situation of gymnastics. So it's going to be a situation where there are appeals and people move up and down the ladders. This one just happened to be in a highly publicized arena where, you know, we just had the photo of the 3 young African Americans or 3 young Black women on the podium. That brought up the whole thing. She's a very well-known celebrity outside of being in gymnastics. So therefore, the whole situation, similar to a Caitlin Clark situation, gets blown out of proportion. This is normal business in the gymnastics realm of the Olympics. It happens. It happened before multiple times. So there are appeals that happen, and it just sucks. And I do hope they come to some resolution, because as the new information comes out, the U.S. should win the appeal. She should keep that 3rd place or that bronze medal based on the new information that comes out. But this is going to be a process that goes on for a little while.
Well, I agree with you. She should keep the medal. This is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, they appealed, perhaps timely, perhaps not, but it didn't matter. The judges accepted the appeal. Okay, once the judges accept the appeal, it's what they call res judicata. But of course, this is American law as opposed to International Olympic Committee law, which is the Wallace organization, which we can see by the way they behaved. And they had a perfectly valid settlement, it sounds like from Rick. Valid settlement, split the bronze. And then IOC decides not to do that. This is, again, the Olympics were great. It's the IOC that is not great. And the thing is, they showed their poor positions on boxing. They showed their poor positions on Chris. And
they didn't show any poor position on boxing.
They eliminate women's boxing.
Yeah, hold a second.
What we need to do is eliminate that sport altogether. Take boxing and throw it in the trash can.
No, boxing is a good sport and everything, but speaking of sports, speaking of that and everything, and by the way, there is a tie to North Carolina in the Olympic Committee, and at some point we'll have to get some of his family on, because I used to love when he was living. Leroy Walker was an amazing individual, and he actually ran the Olympic Committee and is a Durham native, and all along those lines. I think when he passed, he lived here in Durham, and there are buildings at North Carolina Central University named after him. I think the sports complex is named after him, if I remember correctly. Isn't that right, Jatofi? And everything, I think that the sports complex is named after him.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things I know Nick's big on is there is a company that he worked with, and all along those lines, and I have that advertisement, so we're going to run that, and then we'll come back to a little bit more, about 15 minutes of news. But let's see the latest ad for National Pension. So we have a new ad for National Pension. So let's check this ad out and see whether Nick did a good job as an advertised creator.
Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412E3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412E3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412E3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
Great job, Nick, and everything. So amazing.
Good ad.
Very good ad and everything. Sasha, I got a question for you because we're going to go back to some of the political stuff internationally. But are you feeling better about the Ukraine-Russia war now that Ukraine is making advancements into Russia? And it looks like they are taking the war to them. I know you're talking a little bit about that on Friday on your show, and your show is every Tuesday and Friday. But I just wanted your take on the direction of the war and if you're feeling better about there being an end to that war because of Ukraine being able to win sooner versus later.
This advance of Ukrainian troops on Russian territory very difficult to discuss because it's all happening in real time and very limited information is available. Whatever is available is at least 2-3 days old. One thing is obvious that Ukrainians being very ingenious and very creative in what they can do. And as soon as they got a little bit of more Western help and ammunition, they came up with something what nobody ever expected from them. The Russians are completely in disarray. It took about 2 to 3 days to get the information to Putin, because how it works in Russia, let's see somebody noticed something unusual and has to report. So he reports to his superior. Now his superior is getting scared, so he has to analyze this information and make a decision whether to get it to the next level. Because if it's not right or so on, he will be severely punished. So, okay, after he analyzed everything and checked everything, so now he goes to next level. The next level has to do even more work to verify all this information and so on. So it took about 2-3 days until Putin was finally informed about that. And in the meantime, Ukrainians now, they are about 30 kilometers, it's about 20 miles deep into Russian territory. And so far, there is no force that can do anything quickly with them, because there is evidently more than 1,000 superior, prepared, armed Ukrainian troops with the technique, with ammunition, with weapons, all available, including all kind of weapons to deal with Russians. Russians are scared even to come close to them. So they're preparing and bringing their additional reinforcements. But that means that they have to take some of these reinforcements from the front lines. So their attack, whatever they're mounting on Ukraine, is definitely will become weaker and maybe will stall at all. Now, from the morale point of view, Ukrainians show that no longer they will have just a defensive posture and crying and complaining to all over the world, including the West, that Russian aggressor, he's bombing them and he is killing them and he is doing whatever. Now it's time for Ukrainians to do to Russians the same or more of what the Russians done so far to Ukrainians. And that will, in fact, the reaction from the West, instead of saying, oh, please don't do that, it's escalation, stop it. No, they're saying Ukraine is in its right to defend itself, have a war against Russian aggressor, and that's exactly what Ukraine is doing these days. So, what can I say? Glory to Ukraine.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Hey, Kim, you were mentioning this notion about what's going on with the PP loans and everything. I was wondering if you wanted to get into the news, because I do know that a lot of people were dealing with that even during the pandemic, and apparently we are now in endemic stage versus pandemic and everything, which means that that virus would just be around for as long as we're around, and probably for centuries, even past the time that we're gone and everything. So I just wondered if you wanted to go into that discussion and everything, since you brought it up in chat, is something we might want to discuss.
I was sharing some interesting links of things that I've been following, some of the bills that they've been passing to protect their assets of investment, where I kept hearing at least 20% of the during that time of pandemic when we had to shut down the country, and it was millions and millions of dollars, and the contract came with accountability. It explained what you had to do with the money, and it was to be paid back. But then they changed it and forgave it. Grown adults who understand contracts. And then after forgiving it, while they keep us divided, the way I always ask, while they're getting us angry and keeping us divided, what are they really doing behind the scenes? And they've been, spending a lot of their time, changing the bill, making little amendments to it to ensure that they can't go to jail for not spending it properly, raising the rates of what can be audited, because originally I think it was written anything over $150,000. Now they're doing, I think, $350,000. They extended it to $350,000. So millions and millions of dollars were issued to people who pretty much they said 90% of them just banked the money. Then our economy flipped, so that if your money was in the bank, now you're making more money than any money has ever made in years. If you invested it wisely. I think many of them are the ones buying up the real estate right now, and we'll be flipping it and renting it out to the poor people who can't afford. So do I think it was a conspiracy? I think it was an opportunity that these people seized, but I think that they keep us divided for a reason. I was just sharing the links of some of the things that I have been following, the bills that they have been amending, and all the things that they've been worried about, not you. So I was sharing it in the back. But yeah, the PPP loans, to me, was probably the biggest scam, stealing from the people in history of all time. To turn around and forgive it the way they did was very wrong. They should have said, if you didn't use it, return it. If you did use it, send us your accounting of how you used it, and then we'll figure out a payment plan or whether to forgive it. But instead, they just forgave it all, and many of the people never used it and paid their employees. All the while, you guys got a $1,200 check, and we're thanking Trump for your $1,200. Some people got a retirement check. So there you go.
No, that really quickly along those same lines. Hey, Dan, because I was reading your chats as well.
And I was just sharing that because some people want to know, am I protected? Do I have to pay it back? Do I have to leave the country and run and hide from these people? Or do I need, have to pay it back? So I just shared the link so people know who's protected and who's not.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, everything. But Dan, just along those same lines, I did see your hand, Rick, and everything. But because I agree with you, we don't always agree on everything, but there is so much corruption on both parties' sides. What can we do to get rid of all of this corruption? Because definitely I agree that it is on both parties' sides, and many of the politicians don't leave an opportunity on the table. That does seem to be their philosophy. So I just wondering, in your mind, what can we do to get rid of the corruption that seems to be running rampant in, I would say, local, state, and definitely national politics? Maybe less so local, but definitely state and national. So in your mind, what can we do to get rid of some of this rampant?
John McCain has said it for a decade: get the money out of politics, pass some legislation that gets rid of Citizens United. The corruption is because you get, with so much money in politics, corruptible people get elected. To go back to the pandemic, it's still a freaking pandemic. If you look at the chart, for the past 4.5 years, we get a winter spike, we get a summer spike. We're in the middle of a huge summer spike right now with new variants. In LA, we have 12 times as many cases per day on average as we did 3 months ago. It's still out there. It's still killing people, not as many, because there's some group immunity out there, and it's disabling people. But to pretend that this is just a normal thing is kind of BS.
Dan, what were you going to say?
Okay, PACs are a big problem. Political action groups, they can give as much money as they want through them. That's a problem. It is the money. I agree with Rick 100%. Because you end up buying politicians, you end up buying their votes, you end up buying influence that should not be for sale in the United States of America. So these clowns are in the business for power and money. That's what they're in the business for. They do get special deals after they are finished with Congress and make hundreds of millions and millions of dollars more. It's the way it works. Look at every single politician in the past and see what they rose from practically nothing to multimillionaires. Look at Clinton, for example. He went from bankrupt to hundreds of millions of dollars. How did that happen? Well, quote unquote speaking engagements and all this other BS. Sure, the ability to play with the UN's money and the banking system's money and all that on an international basis with the bond markets and that kind of thing. Take the money out, term limits, take the money out, so people are running for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. And right now it's all about money and power and influence and pays the highest amount to campaigns. That's wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I don't want to push for someone who keeps fighting for their own immunity or these people who are writing bills to protect their thieving ways. But I will say this, we talked about COVID just a minute ago and that it is going to be around, but a lot of people don't know COVID has been around for a very, very long time, long before it was detected back in the early 1900s. So I would just say, just be careful. We were taught a lesson. Just use good common sense, healthy practices. If you're sick, stay home. Don't think you're a hero going to work and, I came to work feeling horrible and saved the day. Stay your butt home and save the world. Okay, that's how I feel, because so many people spread the disease unnecessarily because they believe they're more important than everybody else. So stay home and save the world and get well.
So just I think we all agree that money in politics has to be gone. That is a huge issue. And just as an example, and yes, there's Bob Menendez, there's a whole bunch of people that have it. But just recently, Trump went out and said he was against electric vehicles. Elon Musk then donates to his campaign. At I think it was 2 campaign speeches right after that, or 2 rallies right after that, he said that I'm not against electric vehicles. Elon Musk has donated to my campaign, so I have to be for. So that was just a prime example of how money in politics, and that's just one person. It happens to, everybody. In terms of COVID right now is actually starting to spike again in a lot of different areas. There's the tough thing with the stay home. A lot of people can't because they cannot afford it. And that's where we are today, is that you have a lot of individuals that they're the breadwinner, or they're working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And they have to go in, and they choose to go in not to be heroes, but to just actually make some money so they can, pay their bills. And that's a thing that we have to also consider when we're talking about the stay at home, or the idea that you're being a hero. It's not really that. There's a lot of people that are struggling out there, and they have to go in, and they're going to hide the fact that they have COVID and get everybody else infected because they cannot do anything else. They have to go in while they're sick, and it sucks. But that's just the real world situation.
Yeah, that's true.
It sucks, but if they had made the people pay back the PPP loans, maybe they can pay them to stay home. But unfortunately, we're at the hour. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning on World Edition. I'll let Mark wrap.
Yep, we're going to wrap here on World Edition. We'll have some more discussions on it tomorrow and everything. But right now, folks, are getting ready to head to Economics Monday, and there'll be conversations about the economics of the world and particularly the United States on that show. But right now, we're going to get on out of here, and we'll see you tomorrow on World Edition.